Okay, so hello and welcome everybody. I am really excited to host this workshop today, and I'm going to try and keep focused while also admitting people in, because it's obviously a very popular one. So as soon as I start talking, everyone's coming in. But we've got Tiffany or Tiff Docking coming to talk to us from the perspective of a ex-teacher, excellent teacher for many years, who had to stop teaching. I'm sure she will tell you all of this herself, and is now a tutor. And she's going to talk to us about all the stuff that might be really helpful to know as we're getting our kids back to school. And we had a really interesting conversation the other day, and Tiff supports parents with this stuff all the time. And I thought it'd be so perfect for my audience, because for those of you who don't know me, I am a parent coach who supports parents who have ADHD and parents with neurodivergent kids. And then last night, or some point yesterday, I was chatting to Cherry, who has some incredible resources for anxious kids. And I suddenly thought, oh, why don't we bring you in as well? You're an expert on anxiety, and Cherry will tell you her own story about school and her kids and anxiety. So Cherry's got some brilliant resources and is just a font of knowledge in terms of anxiety. So we're going to try and cover all the different aspects of kind of going back to school and how you can support your kids, how you can support yourself. I would love it if people can use the chat. Feel free to interrupt us and ask questions. Really kind of informal, friendly session. And, you know, obviously it's 8:30 at night. It's summer holidays. Kids are doing what kids do. So if you need to kind of come in and out, don't worry about it. This is being recorded. It will be available in my membership, which is £15 a month. And that is for, basically, it's got lots of workshops in there which are relevant for neurodivergent families. So I'm going to ask Tiff to give you a bit more of an introduction to herself, because she's going to do a better job than me. Hand over then to Cherry, and Cherry can tell us what she does, and then we will kick off. So Tiff, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Hi everyone, I recognise loads of you. Lots of you are in my membership, and I know all your faces. It's so lovely. And lots of other people, lots of new people. So I'm Tiff, Teacher Tiff, I'm known as online. I was a teacher for 25 years, maybe more, and have worked with children since I was 16, 17. Absolutely mad on it. I got really ill with long COVID and had to stop almost overnight. Was absolutely devastated. Couldn't imagine doing anything else with my life, and didn't know what I was going to do because I wasn't well enough. Anyway, gradually got better. And 6 months later, I started tutoring because parents from the school begged me, please, could I? And I'd never thought of doing it, and I never intended it to be a big business. And it's coming up for, in October, it'll be 3 years that I started tutoring, and I now teach about 50 children in this room. This is my tutoring room in my home in Bury St Edmunds in Suffolk. So I do that every afternoon in small groups. I teach 4 to 11-year-olds primary, and I've only ever taught primary, and mostly lower primary. And then after about 6 months or a year of it, I realized there were so many families in need that didn't need tutoring but needed some help from a teacher. And so I became a parent mentor, and I run 2 businesses alongside each other. And the other one is helping parents in a membership and in my big free Facebook group with everything to do with going to school. So it's not really for home ed, although there's lots in there because they love learning about how to teach certain concepts, but it's all about social and emotional and the academics. So I'm also, I should have said this first because it's the most important bit in my life, I'm also a parent of 4 children. They are neurodivergent, neurotypical, LGBTQ, everything. We're really diverse in my family, and they're teenagers. They are, I have to remember this bit, 15 to 22 now. So they're moving on. 2 are still with us and 2 are at uni and independent. But I've been through it all, and I've been on both sides of the fence as a teacher, a parent, and a school governor. So I bring it all together to tonight to help you to talk about going back to school and a whole range of different things to do with being a parent and talking to teachers and how to make it work best for your children. Over to Cherry.
Now finding out if I actually know what to say. So I'm Cherry. I'm not sure if, I think I've seen a few names pop up that I know, but I think a lot of these people I haven't actually met before, which is lovely. I'm Cherry. My main focus is I create mental health resources that you can do at home with your children, whether you're a teacher, a tutor, a caregiver, anything, because it all comes from my own experience with my daughter. Her whole primary school life, she's 13 and a half now, but her entire primary school journey, she loved being at primary school, but her overwhelming anxiety just took everything away from her. She couldn't go in. We had a whole year where I couldn't actually take her to school. My mum had to do it because we had the screaming, couldn't get her through the gate. She couldn't deal with the fact that I would have to leave. Like, she couldn't see me leaving. So and it was heartbreaking not being able to take your own child into school. And she'd have a good year, then she'd have a bad year. And she's neurospicy but undiagnosed, so you sort of have to, you bubble along in that lovely sen pool of undiagnosed but something's not right, and it's really tough. So I tried to do stuff that could help her at home, because I think children sometimes need to develop their own language, because they can't necessarily put this stuff into words. So I started making these. It all started on a whiteboard. I used to draw her these little silly charts and little silly things so she could colour in how she feels. And it used to help a little bit. And then as she got older, I had to tweak it, because, as they start wanting to be cool, they don't want to be doing, they don't want to be potion making. They want to be doing, boba tea, and they want to be doing, friendship bracelets and all this stuff. So I had to think, okay, what can I do now to make it a little bit more interesting? So I sort of developed it, and I started making them on the computer and printing them out. And then one day a friend came around and was like, what is this? I need this. I'm taking it. And she just literally she's my best friend. She just clicked print and just printed everything I had. She was like, I'm taking this. I was like, okay. And she came back and she was like, you need to do this, because my child did this and went to sleep. Because it was crazy how your own little creativity can help in a way you didn't expect. So we went a different way. We went through a few things in our life, and my daughter couldn't face the transition to secondary school. So we went the other way, and I have home educated her we're going into our 3rd year now. Not easy, but it worked for her. It doesn't work for everyone. I'm not here to pitch that. But we've spent the last 2 years working on her mental health, and she couldn't face going to school. She was so terrified. But 3 weeks ago, she went and did she was the youngest person there. She went to Pinewood Studios in London, and she just did a 3-day intensive special effects makeup course she was the youngest where they accepted her early. And she's just learned with Oscar-winning makeup artists, because that's what she wants to do. And she was there with sort of 17, 18-year-olds, all doing it for their uni resumes. Wow. And she was there doing it because she loves it. And I'm looking at, she might not be where other kids are, but for a child who couldn't sleep, she couldn't face doing anything 2 years ago, she's now out in the world doing these fabulous things. And that's down to taking her own mental health into her own hands, and doing these funny little worksheets and funny little workbooks has given her such control over something she thought was completely out of her control. So I think by giving children a toolkit that they can look and go, okay, I'm feeling awful, but I can do something about it. I can't fix it, but I can at least hold the reins a little bit tighter, makes so much difference. And that's what I'm about. I'm somebody who, I've got a few sort of qualifications, so I'm not someone who's got nothing behind me, because I know that does mean a lot to some people. Like, they don't just want someone who has just lived it. which I definitely have lived it. But I've also got I've got the understanding mental health in children and teenagers, and then I've got the holistic side with professional relaxation therapy and mindfulness and all of that. But sometimes you have to live this stuff and understand just how hard it is to really know what might help your children. So yeah, that was me. Sorry, that was a long waffle. I didn't mean to waffle on so long. I apologize.
No, I'm sure what you said, Cherry, will have resonated with so many people, and it's such an inspiring story as well. That's awesome. Gonna hold that one. Okay, right. So let's kick off with you, Tiff. I had a really fascinating conversation with you last week, and you blew my mind by telling me about kind of what's going through the teacher's mind at the start of school, at the start of the school term, and kind of what happens. So maybe you could start us there.
Absolutely. But before I do, Cherry, I just want to say, you probably don't know, but one of mine had nearly 2 years mostly out of school, and I wish I'd known you then, because we really struggled. And I know you in person. This has happened by chance that you're here tonight. And when I saw someone I know as a friend, I was like, oh, that's a small world. But I wish I'd known you then, because I've seen your resources since, and they are incredibly good and spot on. So I'm just saying that from someone she was 13, 14 when it happened, and we were only in school about 33% of the time, and it would have helped a lot. Anyway, so me as a teacher, and what do we actually do at the beginning that was such a surprise to Lauren? We go backwards a lot. So when your children come in September, we actually go backwards and do quite a lot from the year before. We don't teach very much at the beginning. In fact, we do a lot of very gentle assessment. We clear our classrooms and make them really simple and basic. So if your child's very young and in reception, and you went to see that reception class in the summer term, you were seeing an almost year one class. So when they start in September, the room is full of basic plastic toys often, or wooden toys, but stuff that isn't there by the end of the year. And same with year one, it goes backwards. Every year group goes back to almost the year before, and they go over things. But what surprised Lauren was we're at our firmest and strictest in September, which sounds crazy when you've got a new class coming, thinking surely you're going to be really gentle, and we're really warm and welcoming, but at our firmest. Because if you think at home, if you suddenly get a TV or a new iPad or a new console, and you give it to them and they have free reign of it, and they can do whatever they like, and they're allowed to use it in any room. They can use it in the evenings, mornings, whatever. And then suddenly you realize that's not working and you've got to rein it in. It's really hard to do that. They just rebel. And if they've had it and then lose it, it's much worse. So same in schools. Teachers will appear to be very firm and less friendly than they really are at the beginning. And so children can think, oh my gosh, this teacher's really strict, and she's not nearly as nice as my teacher was last year. And if you think back, most children love their teachers at the end of the year. They're the best teachers they've ever had. They can't bear to leave them. They don't remember the teacher before that they said that about. My children, not all of them, but 3 of them, said they loved every teacher they had virtually, not every year, but mostly. And they forgot about the one before, and then the next one would be their favorite. But at the beginning of the year, not at all. And there's tears and there's stress and there's tension. And it's really tough at the beginning. And it's tough for the teachers too, because they want to be so gentle, but they know that if they don't put the boundaries in at the start, they can't bring them in after. It's much harder to rein them back in. So they start with the rules and they start with the expectations right from the start, and then they relax. Once they know the children and they know their needs, then they start doing all the extra little bits that are needed. And it takes a little while for them to work out who needs a wobble cushion, or who needs a break for a few minutes, who needs thinking time, who needs an adult to help, who needs to just wait and go a bit after the others, who not to ask questions of because they get too scared. If you think you've got 30 children, and can you hear that phone? I hope you can't. Oh, good. That house phone's suddenly ringing next to me. And they have 30 different personalities and different needs, and they don't know any of them. And so you can imagine it takes quite a while. Like if you have your child's friend over, just one at a time, by the time they've gone, you know them fairly well, but not that well, and you can get a surprise the next time they come, and you think, oh, I didn't realize they were like that. They're really confident now. Well, it's the same in class, but times 30. So it does take teachers quite a while. And my point is, don't panic. Don't think this is what our year is going to be like. Just sit back and tell your child, explain, say they've got to be firmer at the beginning. They have to, because they don't know you yet. So they're trying to make the rules. And soon, once they know that you know how to behave, or you know how to listen, or you're getting really good at this, they'll be totally different, and you'll love them by Christmas. In fact, you'll love them by half term. And half term is what I always say is the length of time to wait and see and not worry. It takes half a term for them to stop being absolutely exhausted. And it's not just reception starters. They definitely are, and definitely need their evenings clear and weekends really quiet, because it's such a shock. Even if they've been in daycare from sort of 7 till 6, school is so different. It blows your mind. And they fall asleep on the way home. They're not up to doing anything. They have massive meltdowns, and parents tend to think it's us, because I was a reception teacher more than anything. And they would say, what is going on? They're learning all this awful behavior from school. They've never been like this. And I would say, honestly, they're not seeing that behavior in school. This is just taking that lid off that shaken pop bottle that you've probably all heard that analogy, where they've been shaken up all day with so much new stuff and it's so much going on. And then you get home and you take the lid off and they just explode. It's because they're in their safe space with you. And it happens to most children every single year. And it happens in other years too, not just reception. It can keep happening. So just know that it will improve. Partly your child will get more used to it. Partly they won't be as tired soon, but mostly the teachers will get to know them. And so gradually they'll start putting all those things into place that were already in place last year. So the teacher has had a whole year to get to know them and got really good systems going. Hopefully, if you had a good year with them, you worked out how to work with them, and it's all passed on from one teacher to the next. It really is. It's not the same as knowing it for yourself. No matter how much you read, you've got to do it yourself as a teacher. So you've got to have half a term kind of wasted and kind of awkward before you start to think this isn't working. This is not a good year. So most times it ends up being a good year. So that kind of to explain what happens at the beginning, right at the start. Lauren, do you want me to go on to how to talk to teachers when there are issues?
Yeah, and can I just ask something sort of based on that, because I think what you said is really, really helpful, especially that framing of kind of give it until half term. When you've got a child who's got like a plan that's coming across with them, I'm just thinking about some of the things that might need to be put in place quite quickly. For instance, if a child needs to be able to go to the toilet without asking, you know, a child needs to be going to school early before the rest of the year and stuff. Would you expect that stuff to sort of happen? And for parents who are having, this might be what you're going to cover next anyway, but parents who are sort of having, or kids who are meeting the teacher before the term is starting. I'm thinking myself, because I'm meeting the teacher tomorrow. We're going to go to school tomorrow and meet the teacher. How would you frame that conversation, and what's a fair expectation, I guess?
So definitely, if they're on an EHCP or any plan, whether it's a full plan or a class plan, it should be passed on and starting from the beginning. If it isn't, give it a couple of days if it's possible. But if it's something like toileting, absolutely not. It should be happening from the beginning. If it's anything to do with medical, definitely needs to be from the beginning. So if it was me as a parent, I would recommend big needs, make sure that the teacher knows already. If you haven't had a chance to tell them already, which reception mostly have before they start the school, if you've had no contact with the new teacher yet for next year, phone on the PD day, which is probably tomorrow and maybe Tuesday as well, and just say, can I be reassured that the teacher knows about XYZ that's been in place, and will it be in place from the first day, so that I can reassure my child that it's going to be just the same? Because make it up and say they're getting nervous. They probably are, but you know, they don't just say, I want to reassure them because they're getting worried that it won't be. And advocate for your child, but in a positive way. So you're always just, I assume it's already happening. You could say this, I assume it's all in place already. I just wanted to check. And if there's medical needs or allergies or anything that can include toileting, anything, say it's an allergy, anything that's serious, make sure there are photos or a written plan the teacher knows for what the worst case could be. Because you can say, oh, they're allergic to milk or dairy or whatever, but if they don't realize how serious it could be, it's just one on a list. So do hand that in on the first morning or in advance. If there's some kind of, there's probably email, or you might have Tapestry or some system like that, Class Dojo, you can always do it on there rather than getting in touch directly, and just send a message saying, before school starts, I really wanted to check that these things are in place. If it's the smaller things like wobble cushions, having fiddle toys, that kind of thing, I would absolutely leave that for now and just give that time and ask your child if they're in place after a couple of days. And if they're not, when it feels right, talk to the teacher in a very low-key way. But it depends whether it's big things or small things, and you've got to work out, because in a class there's going to be real high needs and low needs, and everyone feels their own child has quite high needs, but they may not be compared to others. So anything that you think has to be right from day one, then absolutely get in touch somehow. But when you do, it's how you phrase it. So rather than, is all this in place, it's not going to work if it isn't, they're already getting worried, and so am I, because I haven't heard anything. You can totally reframe it, which I'm sure you all would, and say, I'm just phoning to check that it's going to be similar to last year, and you've heard that this was in place and this was in place, and it was really working well, and I'm wondering if it might be possible to do it again. Or if it's a few days or weeks in and you're worried about something, so I'm kind of moving on here, Lauren, to how to advocate in general. If you've got a concern or something you want to talk about, try and make an appointment in advance to warn them. Start off very nicely and try and say something that's good that's happening and how much they're enjoying this or that. So as you've probably realized, he's really struggling to come in, for example. And I just wanted to find out from your side what you're already doing, so that I have a clearer picture. What's being done in school to help with this? It might be something completely different, like difficulties with another child, or toilet accidents a lot, or anxiety in the classroom with shouting or something. So you don't need to go straight into it about the actual problem. Try and find out what's happening already, because they might say, oh gosh, well, we do this, 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 this. And most of the time when parents want to know what's happening, they're amazed, absolutely amazed by how many things are already in place that they didn't know about. And it takes you back and think, oh, okay. So my child doesn't realize all this is happening because we do it very subtly. How amazing. They're actually doing a lot more than I thought, hopefully. It's not always the case. In that case, let me tell you what I'm seeing from home. I'm amazed you're doing so much. Thank you very, very much. That all sounds brilliant, but we're seeing this at home. And so I'm wondering what we could do differently, because it's getting worse and I'm hearing this and I'm hearing that. And have you got any suggestions? And rather than, you've probably already got ideas to give them, but first ask them and try and see what the teacher has to offer. And then you say, well, that might work, but I can't imagine it working for my child if that's the case. At home, this works, that works. Do you think that could be done at school, or is that not feasible with 30 children? And just phrasing it that way shows you're working as a team and makes them feel like you're valuing what they're already doing, and you realize that there are limitations, but also you know your child best. More than anyone else, you know your child and you know what they need and you know what works. And yes, it's going to be different in class, but you're still number one, and you can help the teacher more than anyone else. And they will actually really love it, want it, need it. The teachers can look quite fierce. They can look quite stressed and unapproachable. But if you can break that barrier quite gently the first time you speak to them, it'll be good from then on. So it's hard because you're feeling like your child's being let down often, but try and find out the other side of it and then come together as partners for your child's sake. That's my advice. That's how I saw it working best with parents, and it's not always very easy to do. And I suppose the other thing to say is, if things aren't working very well, even though you want to go straight to the head because you're feeling really cross about it, always try to go to the teacher first before you tell anyone else. If you tried that and it hasn't worked, then if there's more than one class in the year group, you go to the year group lead. If it's one class per year group, then you can ask to speak to somebody about it in the office, and they'll probably tell you who. And it's usually a deputy head, or if it's to do with special needs, it'll be the SENCO. It depends what the problem is, really. Very often it'll be the SENCO if it's a lot of people in this audience right now. But don't jump straight to them. Always go to the teacher first, because they will just refer back to the teacher anyway, and the teacher will then feel badly, and that won't help you. So even though you feel you've been let down, give them that chance first. Then, and you can always copy them in and try to be polite and say, she's already explained, or he, just how much he's doing for them or what's happening, and that they don't see this behavior at all in school, but I feel like they're brushing me off, or they're not following through with what they said they would do, or whatever it is. And I would love to speak to someone else to help us work together so that we can really solve this before it gets any more serious, because my child's really suffering or struggling or whatever it is. And then if that doesn't work, then you go to the head and you send an email to the head, and you can copy in other stuff if you want, but that's your last resort. I hope that was helpful, Lauren. I went at a million miles an hour.
Really helpful. Has anyone got any questions? I'm sure there are lots of things going around people's heads, but if anyone does have questions, feel free to unmute and ask, or chuck it in the chat. Was that all the bits that you were going to cover, Tiff, or have I?
Well, you asked me to talk about reluctant learners and motivating children at home.
Yes,
and a bit about when tutoring is appropriate, and types of tutoring.
Yeah, so we can absolutely cover that. And I guess maybe before we get into that, then just sort of staying on the school theme.
And anxiety.
Yeah, how many people in here, maybe let us know in the chat, or just kind of wave or do a thumbs up reaction, whatever, have got anxious kids. Did someone just unmute? Did someone just
ask? Sorry, it's me, Gemma. Hello, sorry, can I just ask you a question quickly?
Of course.
Okay. Hello, Tiff. And thank you, that was really helpful. I've actually just emailed the school. They did email today with like a September pre-newsletter, which was so helpful with some bits and pieces, but I have actually just replied to them. Holly's had like a lot of urine infections for the last, since October. She's under paediatrics at the hospital. She's on iron medication as well because she's anemic. So I have just emailed the school just to say, is it possible to talk to the teacher before Wednesday? Because although I did speak to them last term about when we went in for induction about Holly sort of needing to go to the, go for a wee regularly and stuff. I kind of just wanted to speak to them and just see if they could kind of get her to go every hour and a half or so, just as sort of a prompt, because obviously I know they have a lot of children, being a teacher myself.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to ask you, because obviously I'm not early years at all, as you know, and I now work in alternate provision. So because Holly's on iron medication, obviously it can affect her toileting. And when she goes, she does need some assistance with wiping sometimes, just because of the effects of the iron medication. I was wondering, like, if I sent her in with like a pack of baby wipes or something for when she goes to the toilet to make it easier for herself to do. Can the staff help her at all if needed, or how does that work when they're in reception?
Such a good question. And in fact, in my membership, I've got a small groups on different subjects, and one of them is toileting. And there's a group of reception starters in there, all with that problem as their main problem.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And
I do need to join that.
The hard bit is that there aren't. Let's think of reception. We've got an indoor classroom, an outdoor classroom, and toilets either part of the classroom or away. But you've only got 2 adults most of the time, and so a teacher and a TA. Sometimes you've got 2 or 3 TAs if there are special needs or particularly lucky school. As soon as someone needs the toilet and needs help, that takes an adult. As soon as that child needs wiping, physical touch, we're not allowed to do it on our own, so you need 2 adults. That leaves nobody in the classroom. And parents don't realise this. And so you just aren't allowed to help them physically without another adult there. You can pass them wipes, you can kind of pull up their tights, but you're definitely not meant to wipe them. And you can't change nappies without another adult. And there are children going to school with very legitimate reasons for needing nappies. And so it's a well-known thing. It's not uncommon. Most classrooms have this problem now, that more and more children are going with problems with impactment and so on. They will do it. They will help them if it's needed, but the best thing is to try and get them independent. So if you can get her used to doing those wipes herself, check they allow them. Most schools do, but not all, I've found out. Keep them in her bag, let her know where they are, tell her she can go get them anytime. Reception almost always allow children to go whenever they need. I really hope they do. I really hope year ones do too, but some schools don't. They have to go at set times. And let the teacher know it's there and that's what she's doing. And then it should be absolutely fine. If other children comment or say anything, just tell the teacher and say, she's getting little comments. I'm thinking worst case scenario.
Of course.
I know there's some things that happen. Just tell the teacher that this is happening, and can you tell the other children it's fine? Her mum wants it, or whatever. That the teacher deals with it. So yes, try and get her as independent as possible. But if she needs help and she's in a mess, they absolutely will do it. They'll just call people from the office or from another class to come down, so that someone is, and we used to have to bring everyone in from outside, and one adult would be with all at 30 in the room. One would go with the child, someone who knows them well, so the TA or I would, and then someone from the office usually came down to be the second person and just stood there to make sure it was okay.
I just thought if she had wipes, it'd probably be a little bit easier for her to
it would.
herself.
And we've had that before. We've had children bring in wipes. They don't tend to like being different and having to go and get them.
And that's what I kind of wanted. I don't want her to be different, but at the same time, if it means she can do it independently, because she can do it independently, bless her. But unfortunately, the iron medication, it's really yucky, it can be a bit not great.
And a lot of children are on Movicol, and that causes its own problems.
My brother had that.
Common. So don't feel embarrassed, don't feel awkward. Reception teachers are incredibly used to it. And they certainly don't want to say no. They want to do the best by the children. All teachers do. But you must believe that, even if it looks like they don't. They do. It's just pure numbers and resources that's the issue.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other related topic, Tiffany? I've got a question which I know affects quite a few in my community, and then I want to go to Claire, who's also put a question in, which is a very good question. But on a related one to do with like continence and stuff, where you've had like letters from the paediatric team in the hospital, for instance, saying like this child needs to drink quite a lot of water. So I'm thinking about, again, about continence issues where perhaps like they're having lots of wetting accidents and they need to up their water intake. They need to go to the toilet at specific times. I mean, we all know that these are things that are really, really hard to get neurodivergent kids to do, and especially kids with demand avoidance. But, you know, you'll be suggested, they'll suggest to have a watch and all of this stuff. And always it's, you know, have the water with you. But I've never found a school which will allow water with the child in reception or year one because they worry that it's going to get knocked over. That's certainly the experience that we've had. We've never been able to convince the school, despite letters from the hospital. And then I guess the sort of as the kids get older, as they get into the older years, where, you know, those kinds of issues are less common, much more likely to be related to neurodivergence, etc. But you've got a child in year 4, for instance, who's having continence issues, and those things aren't being followed through because it's almost like, well, the child should be able to do this by now. Have you got any suggestions for how you advocate there?
Yep. So I've never come across a reception class, and probably year 1 or higher, that can't have a bottle in the classroom. Now,
in the classroom, yes, but not with the child, because they prompt them to go and drink like every now and again. Yeah. But of course, it's like everyone's running out to break and they just want to go and play. So, you know, what reception child who's not motivated to drink is going to wait and drink? I mean, some will, but.
So my experience is that the water bottles are kept on a water bottle tray or something, and they're allowed to go and have water whenever they like. They choose not to. Most children choose not to. And so it's built into the timetable. So every 45 minutes or whatever, it can be 15 minutes apart and then 45 minutes or an hour later, whenever they stop the activity before the next one, they have drinks. Children that they know need to have drinks, we used to get them to put lines on the bottle so we could see clearly where it came in and where they had to drink down to. No school adult can make children drink. We can't, just like you can't. But we used to have competitions and we used to have games, and it's easier for us than it is for you because peer pressure is quite handy in these. It's bad in some situations, but in these it's usually quite good. So we could do races and stuff, but it sometimes turns against you. For some children feel pressure, and then they, you know, you can't win with all. And some of these ideas work really well, and others it makes it worse for some children. And it might work for a few children you're targeting in the class to drink, and then one it makes it worse. So it's really tricky, but that's the sort of thing we used to do. And we definitely had regular water times, and we'd have it for quite a while on the carpet. So they'd have their bottles with them all the time we were doing a story, all the time we were doing the beginning of phonics. So there was quite a long time that they had it with them. If they haven't drunk, what can we do? There's nothing we can do.
That's great. I mean, that would be ideal. That's not the experience that we've had, sadly, but I guess again that's down to the experience of the teacher. It's down to how what I've noticed.
Common because we were realizing children needed it more. Yeah. So it should be even more since I stopped. I stopped teaching 3 years ago, so it should be even more now. But anyway, yeah.
But and I think some of the asks are also just really hard when there's there's not the capacity. And there's one teacher, there's maybe no TA, or the TA is only in the classroom for a little bit. Especially if they're in the older classes, that stuff gets harder and harder. I mean, they tend to be allowed bottles with them, year 2 onwards, but it's
that's good. Some schools allow them on the tables. I never saw them on tables because they were such an easy distraction, and
I think they've only been for those kids who need to drink. I think.
Okay. In that case, and children are really accepting of difference these days. They're brilliant. It's just not the problem. We think of all the things that are getting worse, but actually that's one thing that's gotten so much better. And people don't tend to pick on other children, don't pick on other children for their differences like they used to. I've seen a massive difference in school for that. So, you can explain to the whole class why someone's got a fiddle toy or why they've got a wobble cushion or why they've got their water bottle, and everyone just accepts it. And then they'll explain it to someone else and say, oh, that's because they need the toilet more often, or that's because whatever. And they just, it's lovely. It's one of the things I've loved seeing a difference in over the years.
Yeah.
But
Claire's asked a question.
Is a problem too. And toileting, you should be able to say to the teacher, please could you make sure that the whole class are taken? If certain children aren't doing it, can you build it into the timetable where they all have to go, and see if that's possible, especially the youngest ones. But most do that anyway. Most say, right, everyone go to the toilet before you go outside, and they take them. You can't make them actually do a wee, but you can take them to the room.
Yeah. Thank
Sorry,
you.
what was the question?
Claire was asking what would be a reasonable time to expect a SENCO to respond to concerns in the early days if your child starts to struggle. So I sort of suggested in the chat that I would have thought the beginning and the end of term, or certainly beginning and end of the year, are probably times when they're a bit busier and might not get back as quickly. But what would you think would be a reasonable?
So do you mean that when they, from the time you've written a letter or sent a message, how many hours or days until you should hear back? Is that what you're asking?
Do you want to unmute, Claire? I think you're muted.
Sorry, I'm not used to Teams. Yeah, it's more of a case of our SENCO is particularly slow, and I appreciate she's a very busy woman, but I would just wonder, kind of especially with the changeover from going from different year groups. I had a bad experience with it last year where a proper handover wasn't carried out. So I'm obviously particularly anxious about it this year. So obviously I've definitely taken on board, you know, with the teachers 6 weeks and let them settle in. But if there's anything that causes my daughter a lot of worries in certainly the first week, that I feel things haven't been carried over, and then I speak to teacher and things haven't been moved over, the SENCO doesn't come back to me really. I have to chase her all the time. So I'm just trying to think before I kind of start getting a little bit shirty, which I avoid doing. What would be a reasonable time frame for somebody to come back, a SENCO to come back, if it is causing your daughter concern where things haven't been carried over properly? If that makes sense.
It shouldn't matter, but it does. Does your SENCO work full time as a SENCO, or are they a teacher part time?
She's a teacher part time, but she's maxed out, completely maxed out.
Yeah, exactly. And the day she is teaching, she's unlikely to be able to get back to you. Are the questions that need to be answered, do they have to be asked of the SENCO, or can they be asked of the new teacher?
I mean, I will definitely go to the teacher first, but my concern is if she's unaware of what was in place, because, I mean, Lauren knows my battles that I'm having with the school. We're still waiting diagnosis, and for some reason, apologies, I always get all the letters all the way around. What is the plan, Lauren, that I was speaking to you about, that our school don't seem to want to do?
The APPR or the sort of SEN plan,
I can't seem to get one, even though I believe we should have one for all the reasonable adjustments in place. We've got quite a few. So yeah, my concern is just if some of them haven't been in, and kind of like visual the cards, so she can request to go to the toilet and stuff like that.
SENCOs are often brilliant and often a big help, but actually I would say you don't need the SENCO at this stage. I would discount the SENCO until it's not working with the teacher, and I would go to the teacher and say, I know it's only day 4 and you've not had much of a chance to get to know, is it a girl or a boy, your child?
Girl.
Had a chance to get to know my daughter very well yet, so I thought I'd come in and explain what we managed to get to by the end of last year, and make it sound like it was great, like huge improvement was made, because she was allowed a card to show when she went to the toilet. She had this, she had that, list of things, and say, Which of those have you managed to get into place this year? I wasn't sure if you knew about them. And if you're already doing them, that's fantastic. And ask her, kind of assuming that she's already on it.
Okay.
If you give that impression, then she won't get her back up and feel like she's got to be defensive and, oh dear, I'm not doing a good enough job. It's more about you're there to support her catch up with where the other teacher was at. And so I thought it might help to know this really worked, and we'd absolutely love it if you could do it this year as well. And she'll say, probably say, oh, thank you so much. I was told I forgot, or I didn't know. I wish I'd had a better handover, or that's really helpful. I'll make sure I do them. Or she might say, that's just not going to work in this class. And then you talk it through. A Senko, yes, the Senko has the ideas and solutions and knowledge of what to do for special needs, individual needs, and will come up with ideas, but they're already in place. You already know what should be done. So you don't actually need the Senko unless after talking to the teacher, they're still not happening and there's no improvement a week later. Then you could say to the teacher first, thank you so much for your time last week. My daughter feels like there's no improvement. This is still not happening. Should I speak to the Senko and see if she can come up with different ideas or help you put them in place? And maybe she'll like that. She might say, yes, please, I'd love the support. I've been asking for support and not getting it, which is often the case, to be honest. Teachers are begging for help with ideas for certain children because they can see they're really struggling and they're struggling to manage their behaviour in the classroom, and they really want some ideas. So it might be that. But if it isn't, and she or he has just not done much, then they'll think, I don't want the Senko on my back. So I would heavily weight it towards the teacher first.
I think
they are the only ones who can make the difference in the classroom. The Senko can't.
Okay.
I think some of this question there was around the kind of the actually documenting and like tracking progress to see like, okay, right, like we're doing these things, we're making these reasonable adjustments. Are they helping?
Right.
How are we?
In that case, you probably already know, but every half term you have the right, and it should be happening for any IHCP, EHCP, what's the third one? There's various different levels, but whether it's educational or health, it should be updated every half term.
Yeah, that's what Claire can't get.
Yeah.
So okay. That's not allowed, and that's Senko that's if the Senko's not been pulling through, I would tactfully say to the teacher, one thing we're really struggling with is last year was having the paperwork updated to show whether these things are working. I know the Senko is so busy, I don't think she's been able to keep up with it. How do you feel it will work this year with you? And put the onus on the teacher. It's the teacher who fills most of the low level stuff in, and it's the teacher that does the update of the individual, not an EHCP, but the smaller in class plans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't have that though. They don't have anything.
No.
That's the problem, is getting that established.
Okay, so.
Yeah. I'm because my daughter masks heavily, and she's I've been told, because academically she's there and it's emotional that we're having, and I'm guessing it's at home. I'm told that they can't put in place. It wouldn't be fair on her to put in a plan for her emotions, because it would be unfair for her to meet those targets. So I don't have anything based on that, that reason.
It would be unfair for her to meet what targets?
Well, she's saying because she struggles with her emotions, and that's where she's struggling at school. I mean, she's not behind academically, but obviously it is affecting her academically, because there's not a problem there. They don't believe they need to put one in place because they don't see how they can basically monitor and kind of her emotion. It wouldn't be fair because it's putting more pressure on her to get to a point.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very difficult because I kind of understand what they're saying.
Yeah, I do
She doesn't see it
too.
though, does she?
I
But
do
again-
too. Will it make a difference to her having that in place, or will it put pressure on her feeling like she's not doing very well? I kind of agree with them, if I'm honest, Claire. Because it's so tricky, because you know the problem school, you know, but is that if there are things they can change in school, then yes. If there aren't, how are they ever going to monitor it?
I mean, if they've put reasonable adjustments in place, is that not in itself something that they would then at the end of the term?
What are those reasonable adjustments?
I'm going to be tested now, because obviously
Sorry,
it's been 7 weeks. It's been 7 weeks off, but it varies. We've got a scribe in place. We have visuals. We have we have counsellor meetings.
Okay, plenty. You don't have to remember anymore. Yeah, I think you should ask for one and just say, all these things that you're already doing, please can you document them and put, you already have though, I think this is what the problem is. Because if we decide to go privately for some extra help or something, I want to show just how much school are doing already.
Okay.
And they have to do that.
I know.
They do. I don't know how else to advise you. You're absolutely in the right. If you've asked for it and there are all those things like a scribe being put in already, then yes, it should be documented. And good for them that they're doing all those things, actually, to be honest. That's brilliant. It's not making the difference you need. I get that. But they are obviously on board and trying.
Yeah.
But they're not willing to do it on paperwork.
That's what I think it comes down to, is the paperwork, because she's got so much to do. I think
be needing to do it. It should be at the class level. The Senkos never did that. They did the EHCPs that go through lots of different bodies and very hard to get, not the class level support. They used to be called pupil passports.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. I
think we have them here in secondary. I don't think we've got them in primary here. I've heard of them because I'm looking at secondaries this autumn. So
they're a legal requirement in every classroom.
Oh, are they? Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay.
There'll be plenty of children in every single classroom of all your children. There'll be at least 3 in every class, probably 7 to 10 that need this.
Right. Okay.
It'll be like part of an IEP, right? Like
an IEP. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a
very simple thing. It's 1 page folded in half very often, and it just documents a picture of them and their name and age, and then it says for English and maths and social, and a few things that they need for each, and then the targets for what the stuff. There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Right. See, I don't get nothing. I don't get nothing.
Yeah.
I literally, everything I know is what I write down following on from meetings, and then I follow up with the meetings. But yeah, I have nothing. No, I don't have any follow-ups.
The one thing that parents I find often think, and I was exactly the same, I thought, if we have all this in place and we have it in writing, it'll make a big difference. It doesn't make a big difference. So it's not going to suddenly solve it and make everything better, but it does hold teachers accountable. It does help teachers to know which children really to focus on. It does make them reflect on what they've managed to do that they were planning to do. Have I managed to do this regularly? Have I managed to do the extra phonics session, or have a scribe once a day for them, or whatever it is? And then every half term they're meant to update it and write the new targets or say not achieved yet. So it's a really good process. It doesn't mean it actually makes a big difference. It might do. For some, it absolutely does, and they don't need it for long. And others, it continues and feels like it's not making a big difference. But if you can get them to do one of those, that is what they should be doing.
Okay.
All right, also, if you ever want to go down the route of getting an EHCP, or getting continued support, so going forward into secondary and stuff.
Yeah,
if you've
that's my
got
concern.
Years and years of documentation, that's going to help. You need 3 cycles generally to get any HCP
That's
considered.
right. You do.
Oh,
So-
right.
Have it.
Okay.
They have to show they've already documenting extra provision for 3 cycles before they can even start writing for the HCP. So that's why it's such a slow process, because they have to show that they've done it and reviewed it and it hasn't worked. Done it, reviewed it, hasn't worked before they go to the next step.
Okay. Okay. That's all right. That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Any other
Cool.
questions?
There were a few more in the chat. I'm also conscious that I said I would briefly cover neurodivergence, and if like you're worried that your child, or you're thinking your child might be neurodivergent, and what you can do. So I just wanted, for anyone who wanted to find out about that,
Yes,
I'm just going to do a sort of a whistle stop tour. So I think the first thing to do is, I mean, obviously for some kids it's much more obvious than others. Lots of children, and particularly girls, tend to mask. The criteria for things like ADHD and autism that are currently in the DSM, which is like the manual that documents like all of the different things that have to be assessed to see if somebody's got a particular condition. The things that they're looking for in there tend to be quite, they lean towards boys more than girls. So often girls will present quite differently, and actually some boys present very differently as well. So and teachers, correct me if I'm wrong, Tiff, but I don't think teachers get a huge amount of training as part of the PGCE in terms of like understanding neurodivergence and picking it up. So to expect a reception or year 1 teacher to be able to pick up your heavily masking girl who's sitting there quietly on the mat daydreaming and feeling really stressed and chewing on her cardigan, and knowing that that is a sign of ADHD, is highly unlikely. Also extremely frustrating as a parent when you know exactly what's going on. So thankfully we've got the right to choose in England. I don't know if anyone here is not in England, because in Wales and Scotland and Ireland it's not the case, but in England you can use the right to choose, which means you don't need the school to say that your child, they think your child has a neurodivergent condition and you want to get them assessed. So you can go to the Right to Choose website. Well, the ADHD UK website is the best one. They've got a tab in there called Right to Choose. Go on that. It's got a lovely table, autism, ADHD, and then it tells you like all the different providers, how long the wait is, whether they will titrate medication. And that's really important, because if you think that you might want to get your child medicated at some point, then, and you may think like, no, I never want to get my child medicated, but it might be that, you know, when they get a bit older, it is something you want to consider. And the research is now telling us that actually it makes a huge difference, or can make a huge difference to mental health, etc. The earlier a child starts medication. I'm not sure where I sit with that, because I kind of, I don't know, do you want to actually, it sort of changes the shape of the brain and how the brain works. And I don't know if we want to change on neurodivergent kids' brains. I don't know where I sit with that. But anyway, it's a different story, different workshop. But so you might want to consider the titration part, which means like getting the right dose for medication, even if you're not thinking about medication now, because if you go with somebody who doesn't do the medication bit, then you'll have to go in the NHS pathway, and that will be a really, really long wait. So if you can find a provider who will do medication, even if you don't want it now, and look at the length of time and choose the shortest, you can go to your GP. I would say to them, I want to go with this provider. I want you to refer my child for whatever assessment you think that they might need. And then your GP should just be able to make the referral. The only reason they wouldn't make the referral is that if they don't see it, they don't agree with you. But what you can do is you can look up the criteria on the Attitude website. I'll pop the links in here in a minute. There's a really good quiz for girls. So you can look at sort of the things that are coming up in that, and you can like print that out and show the GP and go, look, you know, they're answering really high, they're scoring really high on this, so I think it's really likely that they've got ADHD or autism. And yeah, go from there. I mean, the other signs that can be good signs that your child might be neurodivergent is, yes, we have this kind of Coke bottle effect really commonly, sort of maybe in reception year 1 when the kids are still quite little. If that's still happening like every single day as your child's getting into year 3, year 4, and you're noticing it much more than their peers, that's probably a sign that as Tiff said, that you're a great parent and they feel safe with you, so congratulations. But that they're having to work a lot harder probably than their peers to be able to fit into that school environment, which would suggest to me that there may be some kind of neurodivergence or some other unmet need in the school that you might want to look at. So I don't know if there's any other questions around that. And I know that was a really quick, like, I have got a couple of reels on my socials where I kind of talk about who the quickest providers are at the moment. So you might want to go and have a look at them and sort of how to make the right to choose referral, but it is still quite long for kids. Adults, it's about, I think you can get seen within like about a month. Kids, I think you're still looking at about a year. So if you're thinking about it, I would do it now rather than like deliberate over it for another year and then go and do it, because when you want to do it, you're going to be really frustrated how long the wait is. And I'm also conscious, said we talk anxiety. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Just before you do, because we definitely need to talk anxiety. Loads of people need that. But someone asked, who else can you speak to other than the teacher? I'm assuming you mean if you don't really want to speak to the teacher, because sometimes the problem is with the teacher and that happens, then it depends. If there's a TA that comes out to the gate and helps, you could say, can you just look out for my child because she seems quite nervous when they're shouting in the class, and the TA will know what you're trying to say. And say, or you could say, is there a lot of shouting, or is my child just making this up? And they'll say, I'll keep an eye, or they'll say something diplomatic, but they will take it on board and they will look out for your child. Beyond that, then I would go to either the deputy or the head of key stage. Most schools, unless they're tiny, they have a key stage lead. I'd go to the key stage lead. So you go upwards, and it should all be listed on the school website as to who is what level. And if you're a really small village school, then you go to the head. The head does everything. But usually there's a deputy or a head of year, head of key stage, deputy head, Senko for special needs. Definitely, you've got every right to go to someone else if it's not going to work with the teacher, and that's absolutely valid, and it happens plenty. I think that was it. They were asking what the difference. Do you want to explain, Lauren, the difference between EHCP?
I was just trying to write it in the chat, but yeah, it's probably easier to say. So an EHCP is an educational healthcare plan. So that is a formal plan which is bringing together educational needs, social needs, and health needs. And normally a child will need to fit quite a few of the different categories there. And it's sort of what support does the child need, and it's a funded plan. So the child will normally get some TA support as part of that. There may be other packages of support as well. It's quite hard to get. Normally it is something that, well, historically the school would apply for it. Often schools are now not, I mean, it's going to be different in every school, and it's going to depend on local budgets, etc. But generally, what I'm hearing more and more is that it's a real battle to get an EHCP for your child, and the parents can make those referrals themselves. Often they get rejected first time, and you go to appeal, and I think 98% of them, when they go to appeal, then get approved. So it's a long and very stressful process. There's organisations like Sendias and what they're called, IPSIA, who provide free support to help you get an EHCP written. But it would be like a next stage. So you'd have your IEP or your passport or your APDR or whatever your area calls it, and you'd be working through that. And if it's thought that the needs are not able to be met, so your child's needs are significant enough that the school is not able to meet them with the reasonable adjustments that they've made, at that point you would be looking to try and get an EHCP. Does that answer your question?
And they're quite rare. And even nowadays, when you have one, it feels like such an achievement. You've got one. You don't actually see much difference as a teacher in the classroom for money coming in to help. And that's the school
have to put in the first £7,000, don't they? So it's
sorry.
normally the school has to put in the first £7,000 as well. So schools are quite reluctant to do it because it's a massive drain on their budget. It's £7,000 that they can't spend on
everybody else and everything else. And so they try and use it in a shared way, and teachers just don't. We used to get very excited about having one. We're like, finally, we're going to get an extra TA, or we're going to get some extra support or an extra piece of device, and it just doesn't happen, and we end up with nothing extra except more paperwork. So that is the reality. I know that's so depressing and negative, but that is the issue that we're having in this kind of broken school system.
I mean, I must say my daughter has used a TA from the beginning, from, you know, borrowed TAs from EHC, from kids who've got EHCPs, which feels unfair on those children. But, you know, that is her reasonable adjustment. She would not be able to be, you know, she would have to have one if she wasn't borrowing theirs. But I guess that is how they make it work.
They share them. And also that's better for the child with the HCP in a way, very often, because they don't become too dependent. Bryony's got her hand up, and I know she's got something relevant to this, I'm sure.
Go for it, Bryony.
Yes. So can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I have quite extensive experience with EHCP. I've been through the entire process from start to finish. A very extended process, extended beyond all timescales that are required to have been met by the local authority. Essentially, none of them were, and I hear that things aren't improving. If anything, they're getting worse. And in fact, I just want to share something that I heard from a friend of mine who also has a child the same age as myself. And her son started school, primary school, at the same time my son did last September. And they've actually had somebody at their school from the local authority come in to tell parents that applying for EHCPs is a waste of time. Their child doesn't need an EHCP because they won't get anything other than what the school can put in place for them already. So as you can imagine, I was quite outraged when I heard that. And I did say, you know, did anybody who was listening to this person from the local authority have any experience of the EHCP process, or know anything about it, or been through it, or, you know, challenged this view? And she said there was a lot of face pulling from some of the people that have been through it, but nobody apparently actually stood up and challenged them about it. And I've got a feeling that this is coming down. I don't know if it's just our local authority or if it's coming down from sort of government level, because I know that they are, or they were, trying to do away with the HCP plans. They've since backtracked. Yeah, I believe they've since backtracked and said, no, we're you know, fully supportive of them. But something tells me that nothing is going to change anytime soon. So I just want to say,
Bridget Phillipson, or is that her name? I can't remember her surname now. But she, I've heard her speak in Parliament before, and she's not saying the things that would give us any encouragement and joy around sort of future SEND provision. But that said, there is a massive drive from the SEND community for change, and I think it won't be able to be ignored for much longer. You know, autism and ADHD particularly, like, I think last year we saw a massive wave in ADHD referrals, and a recognition that actually we are way below where we should be in terms of like the proportions of people who've got a diagnosis of ADHD and haven't. I feel, and you know, we've got massive backlogs, but that's not because people are making it up. It's because it's more common than we realised, and actually we know now what we need to look for, and there's just not enough people doing diagnosis. But I think this year it's going to be autism. I think it's the same. I think I'm seeing that happening with autism now, that there's more and more people who don't maybe have such profound needs, so they might be like level 1 autism, who are going to start to be recognised, and that's going to really support them. It's going to be really hard for the schools to be able to, I guess, meet the needs that need to be met.
And I think the point that I sort of came on to make here is, yes, it's a frustrating process, it's a broken process, but you have to fight. You have to fight for your child. You know your child, you know what your child needs, and the only way you're going to get it, unfortunately, is to just be persistent wherever you need to be. We were rejected at almost every stage, and we had to fight at almost every stage. And yeah, you will try to be discouraged by the local authority at every opportunity, even when you get as far as getting your EP report. And if you've got a decent EP report and you have a lot of specific support listed in that document, the local authority will try and minimize that support that's been recommended in line with their budgets, because they know they have to pay for whatever support goes in. So again, so even if you've got as far as getting your EHCP, you've got you've had the report from the EP, you think it's all going well, and then you have the final review meeting and you've realised that half the provision that's in your EP report is not in your EHCP. You then have to fight again. You have to arrange for a co-production meeting to try and go through and see what you can get in and what you can't. And then if it's not agreed, you then have to go to tribunal. So I know I'm painting a very bleak picture, but I just want to say that it is worth fighting. And Lauren, like you said, the SEND community is very supportive. There's a lot of support out there, not just from people like SENDIAS and IPSI, but also from Facebook community groups as well. There's a lot of people who've been through the process, going through the process, who can offer advice, support, contacts if you're not getting the support you need. So yeah, my message is just keep on trying if that's what you need.
I've spoken to quite a few teachers as well who have said that it is the kids who have the EHCPs do tend to be the kids of the parents who shout the loudest. I've got a lovely couple who have just started working with, who've managed to convince the school, like a school in central Cambridge, to get an EHCP for their daughter, who doesn't have a diagnosis or anything. I think she just got a diagnosis of dyslexia, which I was astounded at that they've managed to do that. But, sadly, I think it's a little bit of a postcode lottery. Also kind of, it's the educated parents, the parents who are who know how to work the system, the parents who come onto calls like this, who are more likely to get them, because it feels very unfair to me, the whole system. But you're right. I would, if you feel your child needs that support, fight it and don't give up.
A tip I can give you is document everything, so that from the beginning, so that you've said just how many times you've spoken to the teacher, to the SENCO, to any specialist outside, when they started speech therapy or play therapy or whatever they've had along the way. Have it all documented. You don't need to write much, just the dates and what they've had, so that you can show just how much support has had to go into your child who is still struggling. Because it's really hard if they ask you, oh, I think we've done this and we've done this, and oh, it was when they were about 3.5 and I can't really remember. If you can write down what you remember now and put it down with dates, even crawling, did they crawl? That's a massive one they ask. Have they had their hearing tested? Things like that, because that will just shorten the time it takes.
Also, just for anyone here who's sitting there who's got ADHD and you're thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Just to make you feel better, I have this folder just been sitting in my drawer for years, and I've got loads of the IEPs down there as well. I have been trying to write an EHCP for my daughter for the last 4 years, and I still haven't done it because it's just so big. But what I'm thinking is I'm going to find a steal all your data version of ChatGPT and put it in there and ask it to rewrite it for me. Because when I started this, there was no AI, but I think I basically got a really, really long form on the computer, which I've written. And every year I'm like, well, I need to change it now because it's changed again and it's changed again and it's changed again. But actually we have got tools now that can make that a lot easier. And you can ask a tool like ChatGPT to sort of say to you, right, help me structure this, and what are the key bits that I need to put in, and can you give me like a bullet point plan of how I need to go about getting an EHCP done, like, you know, what's the different people I need to speak to, what different reports do I need to pull together, and, you know, just try and make it as easy for yourself as possible, because this stuff is overwhelming. And I think somebody else has given up chasing me now, because yeah, be kind to yourselves.
Now, Lauren, I know a lot of people from my audience are in here because they want your brains and Cherry's brains about anxiety and starting back to school. It's massive in my lot. So anything you can do and help with would be brilliant.
So I think Cherry's going to be the one who's got like the amazing tools and resources, and I really encourage you to check out stuff. At the top of the chat, I have put a link to all her resources in there. And I will answer questions around, I guess, like how you can work with your kids on some of this stuff. And yeah, like do chuck any questions in around anxiety, and we can think about like how we can help you sort of brainstorm or work with certain things. The one thing I would say, just to kick us off, is I've got a framework that I use with parents, because I don't believe there's a one size fits all, but I do believe that if you do these things every day, it's going to help your connection with your kids, and it's also going to massively help reduce the stress and the anxiety. So I'll write the letters in here just so that you can kind of follow along in a way. So it's called leaders. So the first thing is laughter. So I encourage you to try and get laughter in every day. And the reason for that is laughter is a massive stress reliever. So try and get your kids laughing. If they're primary age, which I'm guessing most of ours are, then things like roughhousing can be really good. So kind of, you almost want to get them like dancing on the edge of their fear. So slightly scared that you might drop them, but they know that they're really safe. If they stop laughing, you know, you've taken it too far. But what that does is it kind of releases some of the tension, some of the stress that they might be feeling from school or might be feeling about going to school. And it can really help to sort of let those feelings start to come up so that not everything's kind of pushed down. Because what we do as we go through our day is we just sort of, when something uncomfortable happens or something that makes us feel horrible or something that, you know, we're not sure about, we don't like the feeling, we sort of stuff it inside ourselves. And I like to think about it as like a backpack. We have this emotional backpack, which we stuff all this stuff in, and then we're lugging it around, and we want to help some of that stuff come up. So the first thing that really helps with that is laughter. And when you're thinking about anxiety and something that a child is really, really worried about, I would be saying that actually, if you can start to get your child laughing in some way around that topic, not making light of the topic and not sort of making fun of the child. It's a really delicate balance. But say, for instance, they don't like leaving you. They need to stay with you. They don't want to go to school because they need to be with mummy or they need to be with daddy. Then you could play a game with them where they're going somewhere and you don't want them to go, and you can really kind of ham that up and be like, no, don't leave me. And so you can get them laughing at you because you don't want them to go. And that's helping them to sort of process some of that stuff, some of that anxiety, and actually have some of those good feelings and that happy feeling of laughter coming into that anxious moment when they feel safe. So laughter's the first one. Empathy always, even if you're really annoyed with your kid, even if your kid's being really unreasonable, they're asking for something and you said no and they're shouting at you and swearing at you, be empathetic. Understand that all behavior is communication. So really, really try and empathize with why they're upset. You might not be giving them the thing, you might not be happy with the behavior, but you can empathize with the feeling that they've got. Allow all feelings is the next one. So again, like, you know, everyone is entitled to be angry. Anger is a very valid emotion and we don't want to be shutting it down. It's the expression of anger that we might want to sort of set a boundary on, but we want to allow everyone to have emotions, especially things like anger and sadness, because a lot of us, especially women, suppress them, and that can't, with them we'll be in therapy later, right? D is particularly for my kids with ADHD, but like dopamine hits. If you've got a child who can't do stuff, you know, they find it really hard to get going with certain things, and trying to think about how you can get dopamine in. So the four main kind of drivers to help a brain with ADHD and like that's low on dopamine are urgency, novelty, challenge, or interest. So you want to try and get one of those things in and help your child to kind of think about ways to give them a hit of dopamine so that they can do the thing that they find hard. Routines is really helpful for trying to work alongside your kids. So rather than it being like, I'm asking you to do this and I'm always telling you what to do, if you have routines in place, then you can kind of almost get on the same side as your kid. And it's like the routine's telling them what to do and you're on their side, you've got your arm around them kind of going, come on, I'll help you get through this. So that can be really helpful. And also just when an anxious child knows what's coming, they know what tends to happen through the day, then they're going to feel less anxious. So the more that is predictable for a child with anxiety, the better. And then the last one is special time, which is one-on-one time with your child and letting them lead. And again, that's a really cool way to work through some of these anxious things. I've got a much better kind of, that was a whistle-stop tour and I normally spend an hour talking about all of that. I have got a little PDF, so if anyone wants it, drop me your email address, either message me after or I'll put in my what's the best way to contact me. I will give you my Facebook details because I think everyone here is on Facebook, and then you can just drop me a DM with your email address and I can send that over to you. Sorry, I've just stopped talking as if I'm like expecting Cherry to magically know that. But has anyone got any questions on any of that? I'm conscious of time and I know that like everyone's probably getting tired. I'm happy to stay on a little bit, but I want to make sure that Cherry does get to tell you about her stuff. Louise.
What's the bit about the dopamine? You said urgency, novelty, and interest. What?
Urgency, novelty, interest, and challenge. I'll put them in the chat.
What does that mean?
So if you can try and use those things so basically an ADHD brain isn't motivated by importance. Like, doesn't matter how important something is, we can't get our brains to do it if we're not interested in it, or if we don't feel a sense of urgency, or we're not challenged by it, or it's not new and exciting. So it's thinking about how can I make this task new and exciting, or how can I make it a challenge? How can I attach it to something my child's already interested in?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to help your child to, I talk through it with your child each time you're doing it. So be like, I wonder how we can make this more fun for you. And eventually they will start doing that for themselves. And then they can start going, because, I spent my life, I figured it out for myself, but I use really unhealthy things like, I'm going to just I need a wee, I should go to the toilet, but I'm not going to let myself go to the toilet because I'm going to just get this thing done first. And Cherry's laughing, and I reckon she's laughing because she does the same. But we develop unhealthy habits if we're all going to figure out a way to make this work for us, right? But there are healthy ways of doing it, and we can be much kinder to ourselves than we tend to be. People with ADHD tend to not be very kind to themselves.
Sorry, can I just ask what the E was for? I didn't catch that.
Or the first
in leaders.
Yeah. So the little E at the end is just to make a word. The first E was empathy always.
Okay. Yeah, because we went from dopamine to routine.
Yeah, that is just to make a word.
Oh, okay.
Just so I can remember it. And I said leaders because we do want to be the leaders of our family. Our kids, again, from an anxious point of view, like our kids do need us. And there's a slight difference if your child has demand avoidance. We might not want to step into that leadership role quite so much. But for most kids with anxiety, they really need to feel that you're leading them. And actually, even a child with PDA probably does need to feel that you're leading them. You just might need to do it in a slightly different way.
Is that number 3 that's leaders? Did you say?
What was that, sorry?
It was laughter, empathy, and what was the third one?
I'll write them out now. Laughter, empathy, allowing all emotions, dopamine hits, routines, and special time. I'll put them below. I'm going to write the 4 things first, though.
Okay, thank you.
And as I said, if you want the PDF, just drop me a message and I'll get it to you. Right, Cherry, do you want to tell us about your resources and anything else that I haven't mentioned about anxiety that you think might be helpful?
Yeah, I will whiz as fast as I can, but I know obviously now I've got a 13-and-a-half-year-old, but the majority of her major anxiety was when she was at primary. And there is so much I know now that I wish I'd known then, because I genuinely believed, because I was someone who suffered with anxiety my entire life. I was like, you know what, she's got anxiety, I've got this, can totally help. Absolutely not, because everyone's is totally different. And I was like, oh my God, I thought I'd know what to do here. And it's like talking to someone in Mandarin. I didn't know how to do it. And I didn't realize that children's prefrontal cortex, so the logical side of the brain, is not fully developed until you're 25. And it's like the amygdala. Yeah, it's literally the alarm system, which is the amygdala in the brain, is what children focus. That's what it is on. So you've got to basically see your child's brain as a smoke alarm. Everything new is unsafe. And that smoke alarm is smelling burnt toast at all times. So there's no fire, but anything new in a child's brain, whether they're excited, happy, nervous, they've got these signals constantly going, this is new, this is unsafe, this is new, this is unsafe. And with Lily, my daughter, so we have this thing where if you look at the feelings you get in your stomach when you get bubbled up, so when you've got nerves, it's exactly the same stomach feeling as excitement. So the feeling of the butterflies and the big tension, if you're really excited for something, or if you're really nervous for something, it's exactly the same feeling. It's just your brain telling you, I'm excited because I know what's going on, or I'm terrified because I don't know what's going on. So it's now we're older, she's like, oh, tummy ache. I was like, okay, let's strip it back. Are we excited? Are we nervous? And she's like, I don't know. So we strip it back and go back. That's why a lot of children will be like, I don't feel well, because of course they don't. Their brain is sending them all these terrifying signals of, I don't know what's happening. So you have to strip it back and go, right, what can I do at home to start the day or end the day where they can pull this back? And so you can do this yourself. Obviously, I'm the worst business person because I'm like, I've got all these resources, but you can make it yourself. I'm sorry, I'm such a bad business person. But if you want to do something for your child, I'm literally just going to show. This is something I made for my friend. Oh no, blurring. Hang on, I'm going to have to take my blur off. I apologize if you see my cat doing something weird in the background. Is that off? Is that off? Oh, how do I turn it off? Remove all. Okay.
I could see it though. Yeah.
Okay, so something like a morning is backwards, but this is just a morning check-in. This is laminated. My friend has it laminated and stuck to her child's door. And in the morning, he has this little pen. He comes in, he circles how he's feeling. So there's all these different, there's sad, happy, anxious, whatever. And then here, why do you feel this way? What's your goal for the day? Something I'm looking forward to today. And you can ask them these questions, but if they are writing it down, there's something with, if you put pen to paper, it works better than typing it, it works better than saying it. If you physically write something down, even if they're little and haven't got great writing yet, they can circle something, they can, you know, draw a face. They are physically externalizing these feelings. As soon as it's taken out of here and into the real world, it's a thing. So with my daughter, it was creating it into an actual thing that wasn't bubbling around up here. So we have the worry monsters, we have the teddy with the unzippable mouth. She'd write it down and stuff it in because that was taking it out of her and giving it to something else. So I created the worry monster sheet, which is a huge sheet, and you write them inside the worry monster's mouth. We've also got, oh my God, I feel like I'm pitching. I just want you to have ideas. Like, got worry jars. This is one that you can write your worries in, and then you've sealed the lid, but you can also make them with a real jar at home. You can put them in there. One thing we did find is I've had a lot of friends whose children just can't. They will not talk about it. They can't talk about it, or they don't want to talk about it. I had one child. I'm not going to go too far because I know what time it is.
We have just had this question though, Cherry, so you're spot on.
That's spot on. So I had a friend's child who was in her teens. It can be the same. She was falling in with the wrong crowd. She was in a, the crowd we're talking about. She used to be really close with her mum. She was staying out late. She was not talking to her mum. She was getting worse, and her mum was losing. She was losing her. And we created a. She used a book, and she said to her, "Look, I'm going to leave this in your bedroom. Write down how you feel. If you want to tell me anything, I won't tell you off. This is a free space." She goes, "I want to." And to start with, the daughter was like, "Absolutely not. Get out of my head. Get out of my life." And she's like, "Look, it's here. If you ever want to write in it. I will then read it and I'll write back to you. It's then in the book. We're not talking about it. We won't ever bring it up, but it's in this book." Stayed blank for weeks. And then she came home one day, didn't eat a dinner in her room. Absolutely not. And the mum at this point had left the book downstairs because the daughter didn't even want it in her bedroom. I think it was 11:30 at night. Her mum hears something. She hears her coming out of her room. She was like, "I'm on edge. Is she going to leave the house? Like, I don't know what she's doing." Here's her downstairs. Down for a while. Comes back up. She's like, "What was that?" So after a while, she goes down and she notices the book had moved. And what had happened is the daughter had got into a really bad situation with some friends. Like, they'd done something really bad. It was drugs and all of it. The daughter hadn't done it, but she was around it. And she used the book. She wrote it down. And she was like, "I've got to tell you, but you promised me this is a safe space." So the mum replied to her. She was like, "Thank you for telling me. I'm not going to go into it, but this is it." Slowly over the next couple of weeks, it became like little notes, like, when you like pass notes at school. They still didn't have a very close relationship at home. She was still not talking to her. She was, doing all this, and they slowly built up this relationship where it was like it was in this magical space of it doesn't exist because it's in the book. And I think kids need to feel they're in control, and this is what is important for children when it comes to their emotions. They need to pull this control back because they've got everything flooding them, and they feel like, "I've got no control over this." So they started writing more and more and more, and then eventually the mum was like, "I'm going to risk something. Fancy going for a walk tomorrow?" And she was like, "Oh God." And then after school, she got back, she opened the book, she closed the book, she was like, "Okay, that's fine, we can go for a walk." And after that, it sort of moved from the book, and they started talking, and she got her back on track, and she's now at uni and she's living an amazing life and she's incredible. But it shows that you don't have to have this face-to-face tell me everything. It can be as small as writing it on a piece of paper. Where's that? We do daily reflection in our house. So this is end of the day. This is a bit young for my daughter, but end of the day, I'll bring it in. It's back to front, but it says 3 moments you'd like to remember from the day. One thing that made you happy, one thing that surprised you, one person that made you smile, one thing that you're proud of. But you can also have negative ones because they are so valid as well. So let them talk about the negativity, let them get it out of their body. Like, write down, "Okay, what was the most pants part of your day? Like, tell me." And you make it a very easy, don't force them, because you know what kids are like. "What did you do at school today?" "Absolutely nothing." "What did you eat for lunch?" "Didn't." "No, you did. I know you did." Or, "Who did you play with?" "No one." And so you need tailored questions, like, "What was your favorite part of your lunch today?" "Oh, okay, it was my crisps." Or, "What was the funniest thing that you heard today?" And you have to tailor it around, because if not, that it's too big, it's too vast. So yeah, sorry, I went completely over the top there. I'm just going to go back to the beginning. One thing that helped with my daughter was, as Lauren said, routine. So my daughter couldn't cope with not knowing what was happening at any point. She had to know who was dropping her off, who was picking her up, especially as me and her dad are separated. So we had just a piece of paper with days of the week on, and we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I dropped off every day, but she'd know who was picking her up from school. If there was an appointment, if it changed, we had to write, Granny is picking you up today. We had to put everything, but then she could pick that up at home and go, oh, it's Wednesday, I've got swimming today, or it's, you know, it's Thursday, I've got beavers, or oh, it's Friday and I'm staying at home, so I know that I'm sleeping at home tonight. And as soon as we did that, she felt that she got this, like, her life made a bit more sense. But I found that anchor your routines down. Like, you need to, it sounds weird, but little routine changes are so important. With Lily, I found, because when you finished your summer holidays, it's a bit late to do it now because obviously we're right on the border of going back to school, but the week before Lily would go back to school, every morning I'd get her to put her uniform on, and then she'd strut around, see if she liked it, and then she'd take it off. Because the one thing you've done the whole holiday is maybe lounge about in your PJs for a while. You've, you know, not got dressed, you've chosen a fancy dress to wear, and you're now going back to this rigid uniform that if you've not tried it on properly, that's the first thing that's going to be different. Even if your child's not sensitive to textures, that nerve is going to go, oh, I'm in trousers that are a bit harder than my leggings, I'm in a top that's quite stiff. So all of a sudden they're feeling encased in these clothes. So if you've got any more days before going back to school, do get them to try on their uniform, or say, can we practice? What are you going to do tomorrow? Lay them out first. Get them to do it, because they take that control back then. Because if you've gone, right, let's go to your bedroom, let's find your clothes, let's lay them out. What do you want to do with your hair tomorrow? Do you want to do this? And make them part of the process. Because as soon as they're part of that process, it's in their head. What are we having for breakfast in the morning? That's another thing that Lily loved. Because if she went, can we have toast in the morning? That's great. By the time the morning come around, she's not panicking of, oh God, and now I've got to think about food. And no, I've already chosen. That decision is gone. And every night we do that. The night before, we choose what she's having for breakfast. The night before, she'd lay out her clothes. The night before, she knew what she was doing the next day, because it was written down in her little diary. And even if it's having the same bedtime routine every night, if you have a story and you have a cuddle or some music, make sure you stick to it, because they can look forward to that. And the more control you regain at home, the less they'll be panicking the next day. Like, I'd say unlucky of the fact that Lily never slept. Like, she saw midnight every single night until she was 11. She just was always awake. My mum calls that karma, because that's what I was like. But she was always awake. But we'd go through, we had our routines, and she'd still get up early because apparently she needs no sleep at all. But we have our routines, and she was horrific getting into school because it was different. There was excitable people at the gates. There was people everywhere. There was people trying to talk to her. And she was like, I just need to get in. But I didn't understand that. I was like, just get in. It's going to be fine. You're going to have fun. And the worst thing you can say to a child with anxiety is, it'll be fine. And yeah, I learned that the hard way. And don't tell your kids, don't worry. use safe language. Yeah, I feel like I'm shouting so much stuff at you right now. It's the easiest thing to go, don't worry, it'll be fine. They don't know. How do you know that? You're not living it, you're not there. Say to them, it's totally understandable that you feel this way. How can we make you feel a bit safer? How can we make you feel a bit more sure? Do we need to talk about what's happening tomorrow? Do we need to walk through it? Like, do you want to practice our walk to school tomorrow? Like, if you've got an extra day, should we practice seeing how long it takes for us to get there? Do you want us to see how many songs can we have in the car before we get to school? And it's making all those steps lighter. So yeah, so that's all the little tidbits that I've learned. But going back to my resources, so it's all downloadable stuff. It's sheets, it's things that they can take control of. I've recently basically developed this whole array of characters that each go with a different anxiety. We've got the anxiety one, a positivity one, and if your child can put their feelings with a character, so, oh, I'm feeling like this person today. So our anxiety goblin, they're goblins, is called worrywart, and he's a worrier, he hates everything, but he panics. But straight away, if they can go, I'm like that today, this is how they feel, and what do they do to feel better? They're externalizing it again. So even if you've got a rage of teddy bears in your house, and go, right, this is your happy teddy bear, this is your worried teddy bear, this is your grumpy teddy bear. Every day they can maybe go up, grab it, and go, this is my bear today. This is how I'm feeling today. Even if they just squeeze it or hold it or take it with you, just change it up. Whatever works for them at that exact moment. If they can't talk about it, do something that they can. I've got these, which are, I'm not sure if you've seen them before, they're called pocket hugs. You can make them yourself. This is an awful one because the writing's all off, but you can make these yourself. You can make it with cardboard. You can make it, this is a wooden one. They can put them in their pockets and hold them. And it's like I'm sending you with this hug, and this is from mum or this is from dad. Take it with you, have it in your pocket. This is from me. I'm putting all my squeezes in it, and they can have it in their pocket. And that, I used to draw a little heart on my hand, and then I draw a little heart on Lily's hand. And again, it was that connection. Or a hairband. Like Lily and I had matching hairbands that we'd wear. And she would put it on, and she knew that she would hold it. And she's like, right, mum's got hers on too. So that's my link to mum. And so, yeah, there's so many things you can do to take control back, especially if you're feeling lost in the system. If you're a child who doesn't have any HCP, isn't on the SEN register, like, honestly, there's so much you can do when you're feeling really lost. And I think also for parents, children are sponges. And if you are panicking because you're thinking, oh God, tomorrow is first day back, it's going to be hell, I don't know what to do, they're going to feel that from you. And if you have to, it sounds awful because you don't want to teach them negative things, but if you have to mask that and say, right, this is exciting, but don't be too pushy with that exciting because they're feeling worried. Don't tell them to feel excited because it might go the wrong way. Yeah, there's so much there, and I feel like I've just chucked everything at you. But it is so possible to find tiny ways to regain that control over your children's anxiety and allow them to hold those reins. That's what they need to do. Like, if you can start from early on, allowing them to know that this is totally normal, but I now have a few little tools to help myself. Then when they get older and their hormones start flying and they've got all these crazy thoughts and feelings, they'll be like, oh, hang on, when I was 6, when I used to feel this way, I did that. Maybe I can do that now. And it just builds this toolkit of I'm in control. So yeah, I'm going to shut up. But
so much, Mary. I think we could go so many places, couldn't we? I mean, there's so much
stuff written down, and I don't think I've touched on any of it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even write anything down, but I know that I've just realised that we've missed 2 things that Tiff was going to cover as well. So she's kindly said that she's going to do some of this in her group. It is late. We have gone on way longer than I expected to, but there's just so much to cover. And I think I hope people have found this helpful. I found this super helpful. I've put the links for my group, Tiff's group, Cherry's resources, and also my membership and Tiff's membership in the chat. So do come and follow us all, check out the stuff we've got. I run these workshops every month, and they are free to come to if you can attend live, and otherwise you can join my membership for £15 a month, and you can get access to like the previous 20 that I've done and one every month. And we also do monthly parent coaching. Tiff, did you want to mention quickly what you do in your membership as well, just in case it appeals to some of my...
Yeah, sure. My membership is to help parents support their children through school, at home, with all that we've talked about tonight, really, just to help them love school or get through successfully. And I don't mean academically, I mean happily enjoying school. It's because there's such a divide, as we've discussed tonight, with how to talk to teachers. There isn't time. You just can't talk to teachers these days enough. So the parents, there's lots of them for my membership in here. I can see them all on the screen. And they come to me regularly with little questions of, should I go to school with this? What can I do tonight? How do I help with this friendship problem? How do I help with the toileting? It's not just academic. Often it is that too, but it's more just to support parents to feel like they know what they're doing and have someone to go to when things are tough. And also each other. They talk to each other a lot about what's happening. And it is really very, very, very cheap. It's £10 a month. So if that sounds like it would be helpful to you, do come along. We love it.
Super, thank you. And yeah, Cherry has got her amazing resources, which I think I need to get straight away. I've got some of them, which seems like most nights.
You didn't mention the one you've just done for anxiety and going to school, have you? That one's fabulous.
You know, the thing that I need to have to sell because I've worked on it for months.
Yeah, it's so good.
No,
people in my group are telling me about it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's the Goblins Back to School adventure, and it focuses on all the goblins I've created. Each of them have like a profile page, and then there's matching resources for each one. So there's the back to school butterflies with when you're starting school for the first time and you feel this anxious in your tummy, so you can fill in the butterflies with how you feel on one side and what you can do on the other. And then there's lots of activities that you can do. Yeah, there's loads of that. And then the one that I'm launching hopefully tomorrow, if I can finish it in time, how late can I stay up, is a parent pack, which is it's about 30 pages long, and it's how to work you and your child together. And it's full of things like there's a whole sheet in there which is how I feel, how I act when I'm feeling that way, and what I can do. And then you write in the bottom what I want my teacher to know, and they can take it in and give it to their teacher. And even if their teacher doesn't do anything with it, it's a list of, I feel this way when I'm feeling nervous, and there's loads of tick boxes. Do I get butterflies? Do I feel sick? Do I need the toilet? And then at the bottom, what can my teacher do to help me? What can my parent do to help me? What can I do to help myself? And it's encouraging independence, but also gets you to sit with your child and they take the control over, this is how I feel, and you can see what they've put. Yeah, so that's launching tomorrow, but I just need to pull my finger out and get it done.
That sounds so helpful, and a great thing to take to a meeting with the teacher in the Senko as well. If you're sort of having those meetings where you're trying to, you know, maybe every term you meet with them and look at what's happening and how things are progressing with your plan, etc. Something like that can be a really helpful way of bringing your child's voice into that, because often they don't necessarily invite your child along, which I struggle with sometimes. I think it's because sometimes they won't want to. It can be difficult to say certain things.
Yeah, but all my resources they're all downloadable, because some people like to have them on their phone, on their tablet. They also are, you pay it once, then you can, it's probably not very good for my own business model, but you pay once and then you could download it a million times if you wanted to. But I just wanted stuff accessible, so you get it pinged straight to your email box. You can print it, you can share it, you can do whatever you want. You can print it loads of times if they like one resource. I just think it's easier for you to be able to go, you know what, she needs 20 of this page today, but none of those. So you can just select and do whatever. So yeah, and that's all my resources. They're all on one place and you can just browse and take whatever you like. There we go. I'm done. Pitch over.
If anybody wants resources for helping with school stuff or anything that I do, I've got a website too. So I've got loads on there. Just let me know and I can get it over to you.
Lovely. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for staying with us for so long. Thank you, Tiff and Cherry, for staying on for so long as well. I think we could be talking about this all night. I was going to just put one thing actually as well in the chat, which is that I am part of a summit which is happening next week, and it's all around parental well-being. I think it's mum's well-being, but it's not specifically for well, I don't think it has to be specifically for mums. Maybe a few things in there are just for women, but I mean, most of my stuff I do for anyone. But I'm just going to put the link in because it's completely free, and some of the speakers in there are incredible. We've got Dana Abraham, who has done lots of things for neurodivergent kids, and there's different people for each day. So there's one on mindset, there's one on physical, like supporting yourself physically, so lots around diet and different ways to sort of boost your well-being and your nervous system, etc. And anyone who's struggling with getting your kids to school, I would say that the most important thing you can do is look after you, because as I was kind of chatting with Alex a little bit in the chat about the end there about co-regulation, the best way to help our kids to feel calm and successful and reduce anxiety, etc., is if we can be calm, and they will borrow our calm, and that's how they're going to learn to calm down. And that's not just anxiety, that's if your kids are having big meltdowns, big behaviors, etc. If we can be calm, that will help them to calm down. And we can't be calm if we're running around like headless chickens and not looking after ourselves. So that summit is going to be talking very holistically about ways that you can support yourself as a parent. So highly recommend that as well. It's completely free. Okay, I'm going to let everyone go. Thank you so much, and good luck next week. And yeah, see you all soon.
Bye. Thank you.